Thanks, Chair. I was just letting Deputy Cahill know that I suppose many of my questions overlap, so if he wanted to hang on, he might be able to get some clarification. Okay. So just welcome the Minister again initially. I suppose you've had a tough brief since you were elevated, so I think that needs to be acknowledged, and I think you've done sterling work. Despite all the criticism that the department has received in the media and so on, I think that the main motivation has been to get children back to school, and I think we've achieved that successfully so far. So I think her and the Minister and her department are to be commended for that. Minister, can I just start by mentioning school buses, as previous speakers have mentioned, and I know I've been in touch with yourself, and I appreciate your feedback and your department over the last few weeks. I suppose, as Deputy Cahill alluded to, I suppose we're in extraordinary times, and while this is an issue that recurs every year, I can recall last year Minister Halligan at the time committed to a review of the school transport issue, and obviously Mr Halligan is no longer with us, so that review fell by the wayside. But I do hope that, given the problems that we've had this year, that review, a root and branch reform of the system can be looked into for next year. I think the school transport system needs to reflect the demand for a bus to go to a specific area, rather than getting the meter stick out and measuring how close you live to a school. And I think that needs to be reflected in any future policy. Just to touch on what previous speakers have said, as you are aware, Minister, I have a number of villages in my area: Watergrass Hill, Glenville, Carrignavar, Whitechurch, Blarney, out to Grenagh and Bottle Hill, as was mentioned previously. And we're nearly at 100 children who don't have a school place in those areas, or a bus place. And I suppose, given what has been said, and I understand the restrictions of the service, I understand the responsibilities of Bus Air in rolling out that service, but as Deputy Cahill has said, these are extraordinary times. I think, given the year of COVID, given the restrictions with I suppose, capacity, we need to think outside the box. And I suppose this year, even if it's just taken in its own, I think additional routes need to be put in place. I think additional funding needs to be found from somewhere. These children need to get to school. And I would just urge the Minister, if at all possible, that she would look at the issue again. The second issue I'd just like to raise is about the Leaving Cert. As you know, I was a teacher myself, like yourself as well, for many years. And I suppose while many members of the opposition today have spoken negatively about various decisions that have been made, a lot of these same opposition spokespersons were cheerleaders for the predictive grading system. And now that it has happened, many of them, I suppose, are first to criticise, and I think that needs to be said as well. Now, I myself was a firm believer in the old conventional testing method, but that race is run. So I suppose now that we are where we are in terms of the predictive grading, I just wanted to know what reassurance the Minister could provide, or if there's any reassurance in terms of, as Deputy Burke just mentioned, about students who sat the exam last year and how they wouldn't be disadvantaged this year, and what assurance can the Minister give that will not be the case. And finally, again, it was touched on earlier just regarding substitution panels and staffing levels. I suppose it depends on the size of the school. Many schools out there, 600, 700, 800 plus students in a school, many with staff of up to 100. And while the additional resources dedicated towards substitution and sick leave for teachers needs to be acknowledged, I'm just wondering, in the event that come winter time, if there is a resurgence in the virus, or if there is a bad winter flu and multiples of the teachers that are required to cover are absent due to various illnesses, will the Minister be open to revisiting the situation, or supplementing those substitution panels if it becomes necessary? So look, if the Minister could give me a bit of clarity on a few of those points, I'd appreciate it. Thanks.
Thanks, Deputy. Just in relation to substitution panels, as I have said, we have taken great confidence from the fact that on a pilot basis they worked very, very well in the 6 areas where they were rolled out, and it is that success really that has given us confidence that when we roll them out, and again, as I said, I think there's almost 101 panels at this stage have been rolled out. And again, I must say, this is in addition to resources that schools might already have themselves, their traditional pool of drawing for substitution. whether it's within the locality or whether it's a text to sub or whatever it might be. But I do think it's been a very positive move by the department to provide year-long contracts to teachers to make themselves available on a substitute panel, so that where there are issues within the school in terms of needing access to a sub, that measure will be there. Equally so, as I said to you, and to previous speakers, that those panels will be reviewed as we go on, and look, everything is in a state of flux, so we review, and we amend where we have to. So I say that in relation to this. And in relation to the points that you've raised in the students who would have sat the exam last year and how they fare this year. Again, I think we have made every effort to ensure that and the Chief Inspector has said it, the calculated grades are absolutely a new measure, an extraordinary measure in an extraordinary time. But every possible effort has been made to ensure that the 2020 calculated grade will be as close as possible and as comparable as possible to the Leaving Certificate of the previous year, of 2019, and indeed to the Leaving Certificate of 2020. It is for that reason that, as there was, as you would be aware yourself, in the traditional Leaving Certificate there was standardisation, so there is standardisation in the calculated grade system. And again, that's there because, and you would appreciate this, Deputy, that it is a teacher will know her students and will know their capabilities and their abilities, but it is not possible for her to know the capabilities and abilities of students in the next school or in the next parish or in the next county. So therefore the standardisation is brought in so that there is comparability there, and it is that standardisation that I think will give confidence to not just to the class of 2020 but to the class of 2019, that the calculated grades will be as close as possible. Will there be stronger grade performance in some subjects this year? Yes, there will be, but it is as close as we can possibly make it. And that standardisation was important, so that the 2019 students would be able to look at 2020 and vice versa. Just in terms of the issues that you raise in relation to the school buses, and I appreciate Deputy Cahill has raised them as well, and you, in fairness, you both have raised them on an ongoing basis with the department. In the first instance, I'd have to say to you, that Bus Éireann are currently reviewing the routes that they have on the basis of the new advice that came to us from NEFIT. And I would like to say that, all along our roadmap and all that we have been doing was on the basis of the advice that was available to us in terms of school transport from NEFIT. That changed last week, and so we are now in the position where we are, for a post-primary, meeting the NEFIT guidelines and rolling out that capacity as quickly and as speedily as we can. When the review is completed and when we are adding the additional buses, if there is additional capacity on those buses, absolutely, those who are eligible or may have paid late, or those who are concessionary, if there is the additional capacity there, absolutely that will be offered at that time. I do appreciate the point that you've made in terms of issues with the school transport system and the need, for to look at that. And so we will look at it in the context of when we do have the extra buses in place and how many more can be accommodated. But I suppose I would also like to say that in terms of issues around that and the capacity at this time last year, and the number of people that are students that were in need of a place in a bus, we're almost at half that capacity at this point this year. So considerable work has been done in a very short space of time, bearing in mind that we received the NEFIT advice just in the in the last number of days. If you want to add anything to that, or?
Maybe if there's additional, because we have, in fairness, I've given some latitude, so if there is additional information to be provided by your officials, perhaps it could be provided in writing to both Deputy Cahill and Deputy O'Sullivan. Is that okay, Minister?
Yep, that's perfect.